So, Patricia, good to talk with you. I know today we're talking about raising chickens. And my first question is, do you have chickens, or have you ever raised chickens?
I have before in the past. In my yard, I have 8 of them.
Oh, wow. So do you live like in town, or are you kind of out of town?
I live in
Okay.
town where you can have chickens. And roosters. There's a area in the woods that you can have. And if you do have it there, the police can come and give you a ticket. So I have one rooster. And I couldn't tell which was which. Couldn't tell which one, if they were boys or girls. The interpreter's not sure what the last part.
Yep, we have chickens too, and in our town we can have up to 5 chickens, and like you, no roosters. But we did one time when we got the chicks. You know, we thought we got 5 hens, but it turned out that we had 1 rooster. So that was a little confusing, because the kind of chicken it was a buff Orpington, which is one of those big yellow chickens that are usually super friendly. But this one was like being very aggressive and kind of attacking other chickens, and we just didn't know what was going on. And then finally we figured out, oh, it's a rooster. So when you figured out you had a rooster, what did you do with yours?
I forgot what kind of chicken I had. Normally, you would just go and get chickens. I went and I bought 8 of them. We couldn't figure out which one was a boy, which ones were girls. We didn't know. I just bought them to see. We brought them home, all 8 of them. And my deaf dog, he saw Daisy. I like the flower. My dog's name is, she's deaf. Saw the chickens moving and got really excited and thought that it was a ball. So they broke in and went to go pick him up. I saw me and he had it in his mouth. And I'm like, what is that? So my dog had the 2 chickens in his mouth and actually killed 2 of them, and now there's only 6. One of them's a rooster. Daisy killed 2 of them, so there's only 6 of them left. I still can't tell which one's the girls or the boys. I just know that one is a rooster. The rooster is the one that's a little bit more active, and I put it on the internet because I wanted to get rid of it and just give it away. And I said, put it on the internet for free. And the man came who has a really big farm, and he wanted it to protect the other chickens that he had. So I just said, take it, have it.
Yeah.
So then I had 6, and now I only have 5. Two of them I lost for my dog, and one of them I gave away. It was a good experience. But when you have to take care of them in the winter, You know, like when it snows, you have to keep the water warm when you put it in their bowl because it's cold out. And you have to keep their room warm. You have to put the hay there for when they're sleeping. And you need to make a small door like a chicken coop.
Okay.
And in the morning, you let them out, and at night you put them back in the winter.
So are they able to just kind of have free range in your yard, or do you have kind of a fenced in area for them to stay in?
Yeah, I do have a fence. So I have 2 dogs, so I have to have that fence.
Yeah. Well, kind of a funny story with our rooster. Once we figured out that it was a rooster, Holly, my wife, wanted to get rid of it, and we we're figuring out a way to do it. Her plan right away was like we should take it somewhere and drop it off in the woods where we've seen foxes. Let the fox get it, which is actually illegal in our town. And I was actually on a committee with the chief of police at that time who knew about my chickens. So if we would have dropped off a rooster somewhere, I think the police would have known that it came from our house. So we didn't do that activity. But one time when we used to let the roosters kind of range, we have a big fenced-in yard, so the chickens would range free in our yard. And then they have a smaller run that is kind of covered on top and on the sides with chicken wire. And there's a little door that goes into that. So one night, my wife locked the rooster out at night, and she was hoping that a fox would come by and get the rooster before it was able to get to the morning. But what actually happened is the rooster kind of bedded down in the raspberry bushes for the night. And then the next morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, the rooster went right under our neighbor's window and started crowing super loud. So it was way worse to have let the rooster stay out overnight because it was just like right by our neighbors being super annoying. So we have a friend who lives out of town who butchers chickens and turkeys when it gets to be Thanksgiving time. So we took the rooster out to their place, and they were able to, once the weather got a little colder, they were able to take care of the rooster. I'm curious, though, you had mentioned about keeping the chickens warm during the wintertime. What do the temperatures get down to where you live in Utah?
It can get down to 10 degrees. It just could be very cold. But yeah, an average would be like 10 degrees. And it definitely can get minus. In the mountain areas, it could be really cold. Like negative degrees. Like negative 10, negative 5, negative 10 in the mountains.
Okay, because in Duluth, where I live in Minnesota, it gets a lot colder than that. Like we can get down to 30 below. And we really have found that the first time we had chickens, I tried to keep like a heat lamp in there.
How do you keep them warm?
The only thing I have now is we have a kind of a plastic water container that has a heating element in it. So you can plug that in, and it keeps the water from freezing. And so we have that, and that's the only heat we used all winter, and they were fine. That I have a light on a timer because we're far enough north that the sun rises and sets so late. So we have kind of a light turn on at about 6 in the morning and shut off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then turn on at about 5 at night and shut off at 7 at night, just so they get a little bit more light. But our chickens have done just fine with the cold weather. They even when it's cold and snow, they go out in the snow and kind of create little paths, and they definitely eat more in the wintertime, and we feed them more black oil sunflower seeds so they get the oil and fat. But we haven't had to keep them warm at all. So I don't know if that's the difference between Minnesota chickens and Utah chickens, or what's the difference. Those black sunflower seeds, yeah, that's a really good. They like that in the wintertime because they like kind of the oil and the fat that's in there. What do you usually feed your chickens?
I give them raw. When I cook whatever is left over, some people, I'm missing what she is signing. Any seeds that are left over, any grains that are left over. But in the wintertime, they don't really go outside at all. My chickens don't really go out. They really don't. They prefer to stay inside where it's warm in the coop. On the top, I have heaters. Something on the top that makes them warm. It's not as cold at night during the day. I can't hear what he's saying right now. He's speaking, but yes. Yes. There's two pillars.
Yeah. Because that's like we actually have our coop is in our garage. So it's like we built a closet in our garage. And then they just have a little entry door from the outside, kind of like a little cat door that we can open and close. And then in that, I built a couple levels of, kind of put 2x4s up that they go and roost on those. And then we have shelves that have kind of the nesting boxes in those. So what's funny for me is we have 3 nesting boxes and 5 chickens, and they all want to use the same box. It's like there's 2 empty boxes, and there'll be one chicken sitting on top of another chicken because it wants to get into the same box. I don't quite understand that. For your chickens, do they tend to lay in different places, or do they all lay in the same place?
They kind of just set themselves up. They kind of like are lined up. Same chickens are in the same spot. One chicken stays in one area, the other one stays in the other. They know that that's their spot. They don't sit on top of each other like yours do. I've never experienced that before. I have the wood that separates them. Sometimes they have, they like it when it's warm, and they like to be next to each other when it's warm.
Yeah. How many eggs do you get a day generally?
I realized that I signed wood instead of eggs, so about 4, 5, 6, between there.
Okay, and so remind me how many chickens do you have now? Because I thought before you had 8, then you lost 2 to the dog, and 1 was a rooster. So are you down to 5, or?
found 8. 2 of them died, which left me with 6. One of them was the rooster that I gave away, and one of them jumped over a horse fence. And it could never fly again. But then it jumped over again, and my two dogs were really excited, and it died.
Yeah.
So now I only have 4.
The first flock of chickens we got, we had 5. And the one that my daughter really took to was one that kept jumping up, flying over the fence and escaping. And eventually it just took off and we never got it back. So that was a little sad moment for our daughter, who I think was like 7th grade at the time. So for her to kind of lose her chicken, that was really hard. But I think that's, part of the lessons of having farm animals is that the animals come and the animals go. So there's kind of the lessons of life and death that come with that too.
My neighbor has a horse and cows. And they live have cows and horses. I think it's really cool. It's a new experience for me because I'm from the East, like Maryland and DC. We don't really have that, but here there's so many options and I love it.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
really nice.
And what town are you in again?
I live in South Jordan.
South Jordan, okay. And that's pretty close to Salt Lake City, is that right?
About 45-minute drive. Yeah,
Great.
45 minutes.
Well, I think we're about out of time. It was really fun talking with you about chickens.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the experience. I love learning about people's different experiences raising chickens, so thank you.
Great.
Take care of yourself. Thank you.